Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar from Advanced Agility. This webinar is about preparation for PI planning. In this webinar, we'll talk about what is PI planning. We'll talk about what is the preparation that is required for PI planning. Before that, let's introduce Advanced Agility, who is our host for this webinar today. Advanced Agility is a consulting and training organization. They are gold partner of SAFE. They have offices in UK, US, India, and Europe. And they believe that collaboration of trainers and consultants passionate about everything agile will make some good changes in the world. So thank you for Advanced Agility for giving this opportunity to have this wonderful webinar for preparation of PI planning. As we know, there's a famous saying, well begin is half done. So this well beginning starts from preparation. So how do we prepare for PI planning? My name is Amok Joshi, and I'm a SPCT candidate and a senior agile consultant working mostly in safe implementation and helping the organization to deliver better products sooner. So today we'll cover what is PI planning, the benefits of PI planning, preparation of PI planning, and I'll also introduce you to the toolkit that is required for PI planning, which is shared by SAFE. So let's talk about what is PI planning. So PI planning is a cadence-based event for the entire agile release train that agile teams and stakeholders to a shared mission and a vision, and helps everyone to align towards a common goal. PI planning is essential to SAFE, and many people say that if you're not doing PI planning, you are not doing SAFE. It is so important to SAFE. So let's understand the mapping of the PI planning to the Agile principles. The Agile Manifesto principles state that the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is a face-to-face conversation. And SAFE take this principle to the next level for PI planning. Though after COVID, many of us have been doing PI planning in remote setup, but still it is very important that we come on the cameras and we do video conferencing and etc. if we are doing PI planning. The alignment is the main goal for PI planning. So let's understand the benefits of PI planning. PI planning help us to establish a face-to-face communication along with all the team members and stakeholders. If not face-to-face, feeling like face-to-face, when everyone is on the video and everyone sees each other together. It helps to build the social network the art depends upon. Alignment, development to the business goals with the business context, vision, and the teams and the agile release train PI objectives. Having a PI planning also help in identifying dependencies and foster cross-team and cross-art collaborations, providing the opportunity for just the right amount of architecture and lean UX with enough guidance. Also, PI planning help us to match demand to capacity and eliminate excess work in progress. The motto is we should start finishing rather than keep starting. And finally, my favorite, it helps in faster decision making. The decision latency is the key for successful product development. And the organizations that are making faster decisions, they are winning the race. That's why we all at SAFE believe, we all at Advanced Agility also believe that making faster decisions and having a PI planning is really the heartbeat of SAFE. Now, this webinar is about preparation of PI planning. Now, if you want to prepare, let's say a dish, a pasta, what are the first steps that you will require to do this preparation for this dish. The first thing that we might need to understand what are the inputs of the dish so that we can make the preparation for the inputs. So let's understand the inputs of PI planning. So the inputs of PI planning are business context. You will see the business context, readiness, the roadmap and the vision, and the top 10 features or top N features, the highest priority features of the art backlog. During the PI planning, all the teams come together, they plan together, they identify the dependencies, they highlight risk and impediments, they create objectives, and they finalize their plans as objectives and produce outputs, which are committed PI objectives for each team and a program board, which is plan on a page that we call art planning board. So those are the outputs that we produce. This is an example of a planning board from scaledagile.com. Okay. So on the top, we have iterations. A planning iteration, PI, is renamed as planning iteration. PI is planning increment now. So earlier, PI planning, and we used to say, what is PI? PI is program increment. But in version 6.0, we have renamed that as planning increment instead of program increment. So in a planning increment, which is a duration of 4 to 6 iterations, let's say 5 iterations, on the top, you have iteration 1.1 to 1.5. And on the left, we have all the teams who are participating in the planning increment. Okay. On this program board, we have features, significant dependencies, and milestones. So this is one of the output of PI planning. Another output of PI planning are team PI objectives. So every team will come up with team PI objectives. And then at the end of the PI planning, the RT will club all those PI objectives and create a program PI objectives, which are for managing information and to communicate back to the management so that we can close the loop that teams are delivering something that management expected at the first place. Now, let's come back to an understanding that where are we do or when we are doing PI planning. So PI planning is done in the last iteration of the planning increment, which is also known as innovation and planning increment or IP iteration. In IP iteration, one of the program, or when we say one of the art event instead, one of the art event is inspect and adapt. We should do PI planning after inspect and adapt. Traditionally, we can see these are the 2 days of PI planning, but if we are doing PI planning in a remote setup, it might extend to 2.5 to 3 days as well. These are the sample agendas of 2 days PI planning, but as we said, you can extend them into 3 days as well. On the first day, the executives, the product management, and the architects gives the context, vision, and architecture guidelines. Then your RT will share the planning context, how the teams are supposed to plan and what is expected from everyone. The team will go to the breakout areas and they will create draft plans. If there are issues like risk and impediments, they will highlight it and your management will try to solve them for the next day. And if there are any change in scope, if there is change in vision, change in priorities, your management, including your product management, RT, your system architects, will share that with your teams in planning adjustment on the day of 2. The next event is your team breakout 2, in which the team will create their final plans and the business owner will assign business value so that they can decentralize the decision making to the teams during the implementation. After the final plans are created, they are presented by team members in front of everyone on the train, and your business owners will discuss and whether they will inform whether they accept or not. Roaming of the risk takes place, and then there is a confidence vote and a small retrospective. Now, this is very important to understand what's happening during the PI planning so that you can also understand What are the inputs? So the major areas for preparation of PI planning are organization readiness, content readiness, and also logistic readiness. So we'll talk about these three things in detail in a while. For organization readiness, the planning and context. Is the planning process, scope, product, system, technology domain understood? Do we know which team needs to plan together? Business alignment. Is there a reasonable agreement on priorities among the business owners? Agile teams. Do we have agile teams? Are there dedicated team members and an identified scrum master or team coach and product owner for each of the teams? So these all aspects comes under organization readiness. The second aspect is content readiness. Is our content or the backlog ready? So content readiness includes executive briefings, a briefing that defines the current business context, a product vision briefings prepared by product management, which include the top 10 features or top n features, depending on the size of the features or depending on the size of your train. And the third part is your architecture vision briefings. So because we have seen the 2-day agenda of the PI planning, we know that these kind of content readiness is very much required because this is what we need. And the third part is your, it's not content, it is the facility readiness, or your, if you see third part, it should be your logistics readiness. Yeah. So logistics, or you can say facilities readiness. So location is there, whether we have technology and tooling, even the communication channels, audio, video, all those things. So that's are also required for the logistics or facilitation readiness. So these are the three categories which should be ready. Now, SAFE gives us a good, you can say, checklist, which can be identified that these are the top items that should be ready before we launch PI planning. As a RT, we should identify these, we should work with our teams, and we should make a checklist that who's taking responsibility for all these items. Maybe RT is not the only person who should be doing all these things, but it is again decentralized decision making, and collaboratively we should be able to achieve those things. So as you see here, having a RT is very, very important. Having a planning context is important. Having the cadence for PI planning, like whether it is a 2 weeks iteration, 3 weeks, how many iterations there are in PI? The attendance of the team, because if the team's members are not there, who will do the planning? Because they have to commit. The people who do the work commits the work in PI planning. The business alignment, product vision, these are very, very important readiness checklist for preparation of your PI planning. Now, if you want to release a train first time, there's a quick start approach. And if you look at this, it is like around 2 months, is required to define the backlog and get ready for the PI planning. Almost 8 weeks. Now, it is not a thumb rule, but in general case, you might need this much if you are launching your first train. So first part, as we spoke about the inputs, the vision. Okay? So the vision has to be ready, the portfolio vision. Yeah? So you should create a solution vision for your train. The second part is your roadmap. So PI roadmap. So PI roadmap is very, very important because what are we doing in the next PI? Maybe those features need some enablers and we need to plan those enablers into our current PI. So we will forecast the rest of the 2 PIs and we'll commit this current PI. What are we going to achieve in this PI? So that is your commitment in this PI. So this is your PI roadmap. And finally is top 10 features. You have weighted shortest job first to prioritize the features. So these were the 3 inputs: vision, roadmap, and top 10 features. And if we are able to prepare them, we are ready for the PI planning. Some of the other important aspects to be considered are capacity allocation. We need to ensure that our architects and product management are talking to each other so that we are having capacity allocation, so that different type of backlog items are not compared against each other, so that we are able to build a architecture runway, so that we are considering all the non-functional tasks like building a test environment, which are related to compliance, which are related to exploration, are also done. So we do capacity allocation so that equal or essential capacity is reserved for enablers as well. That's all. I think happy preparation for PI planning. So why advanced agility? Because advanced agility do a lot of workshops which will help you to better PI planning. Why advanced agility? Because our achievements are there that we have 100% successful rate. We have more than 5,000 people or participants whom we have trained and 100 plus clients. How we are different from peers? Because one of our motto is we create a guiding coalition and we train leaders and executive and teams, and we have 24/7 support. So just like sun never sets for advanced agility, we have trainers and executives and consultants all over the world, from Australia to Singapore to India, Europe, um, to Ireland, and in Eastern time, Central time, in Canada, and in Pacific as well. So we have more than almost 100 trainers, freelancers who are around the world, and we deliver trainings anytime, anywhere. Also, one of the interesting fact about advanced agility is that there's a free lifetime support. If you're done training from once with us, whenever you need a support, you have lifetime support for us. Whose lifetime? Yeah, lifetime of both of us, yours and advanced agilities. Okay. There are some testimonials I want to share. And finally, how to contact advanced agility. So as you said, around the world, you can write to contact@advancedagility.com to further have any information about any workshops that you require for PI planning or preparation for PI planning. We'll take questions now. Any questions? Okay, I see a question that what is the role of a RT in PI planning? Yeah, RT is the main facilitator of PI planning. So RT helps from preparation of PI planning to facilitating the PI planning and even execution of the PI. So RT is a very, very vital role for PI planning. Without a RT, it is difficult to do PI planning. The second question is, who acts as a RT for the first PI planning? Okay, so for the first PI planning, it is better that we get some experienced RT or someone who can navigate to policies and politics of your organizations. Okay. Or you hire a SPC who has experience in launching trains, and SPC act as a RT for the first PI planning. Okay. We have another question. Do you write stories in PI planning? Yeah. So we write stories in preparation of PI planning, but those stories might not be complete, might not be estimated. So during PI planning, if the teams need more stories, they can write more stories and they can estimate us. So the preparation of PI planning should have balanced approach from future and present. Okay. So from future perspective, like for the next PI, what I'll be planning, and for the current, the execution as well. So we should have a balanced time. Okay, thank you. Let's see another question. What will be the role of the Scrum Master in PI planning? The Scrum Master is part of the team. And in the PI planning, Scrum Master work with RTE to ensure that the team is creating the draft plan during the PI planning. And one of the questions that or scenarios we cover in our Scrum Master training as well, that how can we ensure that when we have confidence vote, your team is not saying, okay, we are just 1 or 2 in confidence in PI planning, so we can't commit. So what is the Scrum Master can do before the PI planning so that their team is aware of the features that they are going to deliver, and they have refined those features into stories, and those stories are well understood. And during the PI planning, the Scrum Master can help to remove dependencies between other teams and share learnings, yeah, and ensure that if risk and impediments are there, they are highlighted to the RTs. So that is a few role of a Scrum Master during the PI planning. There's another question. Before the PI planning, the art backlog would be shared to all the Scrum teams and do the backlog work. If this is the case, the art backlog will be very huge and take a lot of time for analysis. Also, there's a lot of impact on the current work of the Scrum teams. Can you go through some insights about handling the scenario? So when we are preparing for PI planning, as I said, we are balancing the future work with the present work. Okay. SAFE does not recommend any specific time that we should spend for preparation activities. But as per Scrum Guide, it says you should not spend more than 10% time in the backlog refinement. SAFE suggests that depends. Okay. Because if you are not ready, if it's your first PI planning, you might take more time in preparation. Okay. If the features are new, if the technology is new. Okay. So it depends on how much time you want to invest. So it has to be a balanced approach. Also, other question is that about art backlog. So there are 3 steps of refinement. The first step of refinement is breaking the epics into features. So your RT facilitate that session along with your business owners, your architects, your product management. Yeah, so we identify the epics that we want to implement that has been approved by the portfolio, or some local features that are there from the on the train, the local features on the trains as well. So out of those, we try to identify features, breaking epics into features, and we do feature storming session for that. Once the features are identified, we refine those features. Features are defined, like first we just have name of the features, then we have benefit hypothesis of the features, that why someone would like to invest in these features. Why would someone pay IT team to develop those features? And then what are the acceptance criteria, conditions of satisfaction of these features? So once we have done that, features are defined, we use a technique called WSJF or any other prioritization technique to prioritize those features. Once the features are prioritized, from the top of the features, we pick up, and now again RT facilitate a session. This time they invite product owners and their teams as well, and the team leads as well, where they allocate or they find which feature which team should be delivering. So this is the time in the preparation where team already knows that they will be working on which features. And then they work with those teams to break those features into starter stories and then hand it over to the Scrum Masters. So once the Scrum Masters and the product owners and the teams know which features they are working on, they will try to refine those specific features only. And that way, it is not a huge backlog for the teams. They are not refining all the features. They are refining the features that they are supposed to develop. So before the PI planning, the teams know that which features they are working on. Okay. Okay, I don't see any more questions. We're saying thank you. Another question has come up. When is architecture runway teams notified of upcoming requirements that will require deployment prior to the PI commitments? So yes, so as we said that we should create a PI roadmap. With help of PI roadmap, we will know whether the features or the other functionality that we want to develop in the next PI, whether they need enablers or not. If they need enablers, we have to develop the architecture runway for those enablers. Yeah? And those enablers will help, in fact, to develop the architecture runway as well for the future functionalities. Sometimes it happens that within the same iteration, we have to develop the architecture and we also develop the feature as well. So that's why we use capacity allocation for the current PI. Okay, good. So I think we're good. Let me know if there are any more questions, or we can say goodbye. Okay, no more questions. So great. So hope to see you in another session. We'll be doing 3rd week of every month. Till then, bye bye. Bye bye. See you.